If you're getting divorced and a business is involved, there are some very particular concerns that we're going to need to deal with. First of all, you may co-own a business with your spouse, and that can be the most difficult to deal with because some people want to remain business partners and still go through with a divorce, and that can cause problems emotionally, but it can be done. Um, More often than that is that one spouse owns a business or is part of a family owned business and has been the main source of support for the family while the other spouse has done something different, whether that be stay at home or have a different career. The law says that a business interest is a marital asset that the court can consider. Now, there are always some exceptions to that, and we can talk to you about particular situations. But in general, especially if you have a long-term marriage, a business that somebody owns, even if it's only a portion of it, their portion of it is something that the other spouse is going to seek to be compensated for. So there are particular tools in valuing a business. And this is a situation where we need to bring an expert on board almost immediately. There are CPAs who hold something called a CVA, which means they are a certified valuation analyst. And they have a particular skill set where they can help you value a business based on what type of business it is, what the market is like, what assets it owns, what the shares are like. In order to do that, the business has to disclose all kinds of documents and really basically open their books to the valuation analyst. The court can appoint a person to do that. We can also hire our own expert to do it if we think that that would be better. The majority of the time, if a business is profitable and is a source of support for the family, the other spouse isn't going to want to damage that business interest. They are going to want to seek some other type of compensation from the marital assets. So very recently, I had a case where we did a business valuation and then we had an appraisal of the real estate, and they were pretty close. And the person who owned the business said, I don't want my business to be disrupted and I don't want to have to come up with cash to pay this person out. And the other person said, I'm happy if you just let me keep the real estate. And it balanced out. That can happen a lot. Sometimes it does result in a cash payment. What you don't need to really worry about if you are a business owner is that suddenly, because of the divorce, your spouse is going to become a co-owner or a business partner of yours. We are trying to divorce you in every way, not bring you more together and more entangled financially. So that would be a very, very rare result, and you don't need to lose sleep over that. Valuing a business for court purposes, like everything else, can occur on a spectrum. Sometimes both sides hire their own certified valuation analyst to value a business, and this person says it's worth this, and this person says it's worth this, and then the judge has to pick a number. That's not ideal. It is usually a lot better if you request the court to either appoint one expert or order the parties to choose an expert together, because then the court isn't having to arbitrarily decide what the value of a business is. If you get a business valuation, you should be prepared to have to pay probably around $5,000 for an expert to do a valuation, and it's going to take several months. They're going to look back probably at least 5 years to see, the ups and downs of the business, what the profit and loss have been, see if there have been distributions or possibly delayed distributions once the divorce started that would result in excess cash in the business. You're going to want somebody who is absolutely willing to go to court and testify if they need to, even though that's not usually necessary because they do a thorough report that the court can refer to. When I'm presenting a case and talking about the value of a business, I just want to make sure that I have a really clean summary of, usually it's 3 different ways you can analyze the value of a business based on a market the same as if you get an appraisal on a house. And then you have to have all the supporting documents just in case, to make sure that you can justify any value you've given to a business. Now, valuing a business can be very subjective, just like anything else. So if it's a one person business who owns 100% of it, and that person walks away from the business, it may not be worth too much after that. A valuation analyst is going to be able to account for all of those factors when they give you a number to work with. Once you have a solid value for the business that you feel like you can back up, you're going to want to look at the least disruptive way to compensate the other spouse for the interest in that business. The business may have a lot of hard assets like real estate, and they may have cash that can be paid out, or they may not have a lot of easily accessible payouts to the other spouse that they can make. So when that's the case, you're going to want to try to balance it against other assets in the marital estate if possible. If there are no other assets to balance it against, it's usually still a last resort that a business interest is going to be sold and the assets divided. Because what that means is the person who owns the business is losing their stream of income. And that's almost never best for either spouse, honestly, particularly if there are children. There have been times where I have seen if the business owns several parcels of real property, they let one go and title that over to the other spouse and kind of call that even. There are also things you can structure where you ask for a payout from the spouse who owns the business, and that can be paid over time, so monthly or yearly until it's paid, so that the business doesn't take such a hit, but you as the other spouse can get compensated for your part of it. It's an advantage, particularly when you have a small business, to try to work something like that out rather than just taking that to court and having the judge figure out what may be a very less than ideal solution for the business owner. If you have a business and you are considering getting married, you need to get a prenuptial agreement. I don't care if you think it's unromantic or it's pessimistic. It's not. You can sign the document and put it away in a drawer, never look at it again, have the happiest marriage in the world. That is the only absolute ironclad way that you can protect your business if you get a divorce. Now, there are other things you can do, but if you form an LLC or a corporation, under the law, that is considered a separate entity, a third party. And if the lawyer who represents your spouse is smart, they will join that entity as a party to your divorce. So now you're getting divorced from your spouse, and your business is also having to participate in the litigation, which, if you have partners, they're not going to be too thrilled about that. They're not going to want to open their books and show their P&L to the public, which is basically what happens because the court is a public forum. So you may structure layers of LLCs in an attempt to protect your business assets. You may put it in somebody else's name, but at the end of the day, you need to be thinking about these things before you get married, or at the very least, if you form the business after you get married, you can also enter into a postnuptial agreement if your spouse is willing to do that. The business itself is not truly protected by the legal fictional things that you can do, like an LLC, because it can always be joined as part of the divorce. So keep that in mind. If you're concerned about the impact a divorce is going to have on your business, contact Empowered Family Law.